Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reimagining Cyber podcast, once again with Rob and Stan joining you. In today's conversation, we're going to be talking about what we're dealing with this time of the year, which is Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all of those threats that come along for the ride, Stan.
Hey, Rob, you sound a little different today. Where are you?
You picked up on that, didn't you? So I am in Miami. I had really, I thought, mapped out my itinerary pretty perfectly to have a meeting and then run back to my hotel room and do this recording. And so as I get to the hotel room, housekeeping is there. And I'm like, okay, great. Now what? So I come scrambling down to the lobby area looking for a quiet spot. It is an absolute zoo down there. And so I was told, hey, there's no meeting rooms available, but if you go just across the way, there's another lobby that we have that is much more of a quiet scene. I get here. It is quiet with some lovely background music that may come across, a little Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. So it's very, very soothing.
Well, it doesn't sound bad.
Good. We may have some of that throughout the episode.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about some of those threats that both from a business, I guess, and a consumer aspect, right, Stan? We can go over. So maybe you can kind of kick us off. What are some of the things we should be considering here?
Well, even before we get to that, Rob, just let's talk about the scale, right? I mean, if you think about it, last year, $9 billion was spent on Black Friday alone.
Wow.
And then close to $11 billion on Cyber Monday. And between that, there were like close to $5 billion on both that Saturday and Sunday. So if you're thinking about it, that's roughly $30 billion spent. And they think there are up to 197 million shoppers here in the US alone. I mean, I don't know about you, but I personally do all my Christmas shopping during that weekend. I try to get it all done before I, feel like I'm behind the curve,
I think it's funny though, each year it seems like it goes earlier and earlier. You get all these different notifications about, hey, Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals already happening like 2 weeks before we even get to the point, right? But
exactly.
There are all these lurking kind of concerns. So maybe we can kind of, I'll start, Stan, on the consumer side, if you don't mind. And, you get all these different, basically it's phishing, smishing type of events occurring or attacks in a certain way occurring where here comes this great email with a deal, best deal you could ever imagine, right? It's too good to be true. And there's this temptation, go click on that link for that vendor that you may not know. And so again, listen, if you don't know them, do a little research before you actually go and click on that link. These sites are getting spun up and people are putting out these different types of emails and the consumer falls for that trap over and over and over again.
I think you're absolutely right. The phishing emails are getting more sophisticated. The one I have, I know people, are tempted to fall for are those that are trying to confirm an order, and you're thinking to yourself, "Did I order that?"
Did I do
you're
that?
Tempted to click on that link just to say, Is that something I ordered? And so, in that mad rush of buying all this stuff, was that something that was on that, frenzied list of things? And so you have to be careful. One of the ones that I think you need to be aware of as well is just, you have to be very careful about the websites, verifying that the retail website is legit and they're shopping on the real site, because, cyber criminals will often put up a mirror site that, looks very similar to what the legitimate company site looks like. But you really do need to check the URL and look for signs of authenticity to make sure that it truly is the site before you start putting in your credit card information.
Another kind of play on that is also where you get these pages, landing pages, basically that it's for a fake browser update. So you're redirected because, hey, listen, your browser's not up to date. It's got this, missing security patch as an example. No, browsers don't update like that, right? So listen, like as an example, Google Chrome, take a look in the top right-hand corner. You'll see if there's an update that you require or not, right? So don't fall for those types of, kind of misdirections as well.
But I do recommend that you go ahead and do your software updates.
Yes.
Yeah, so, don't be prompted by an email or something that's actually causing you to do the update and fall for that trick. But go ahead and ensure that you are up to date to ensure that you're not falling for any kind of recent vulnerabilities. Another thing to be aware of and we all love gift cards, but sometimes these gift cards are Trojan horse, as it were, right? And not a classic definition of our cybersecurity Trojan horse, as much as they're fake. And these fake cards will not work when you try to use them, but you may be trying to, you may have to, done something to give money to somebody to get the card. It looks like it's too good of a deal.
It's a 2-for-1 deal. It's a 3-for-1 deal, right? Give me this, $25 and you're going to get $50 or $75 back in the amount for that gift card. You're right. Hey, another one talking about updates, which was interesting kind of on the business side is, I think it was around the middle of October, actually. So Adobe, published a big update and saying, hey, listen, make sure that you update the Adobe e-com software because there are about 9 vulnerabilities, security vulnerability patches available within there. So telling, again, the business side to, again, ensure that their side is updated with the right security controls. Because again, it's a busy time of the year, right? This is where you see all these different organizations relying heavily on major revenue streams coming through, literally going into a freeze, locking things down, back in the beginning of the month of November, all the way through into January. So again, it's a great job from Adobe in this case, actually getting the communication out to their customers, ensuring that they're updating their own software platforms that run the Adobe e-commerce solutions on them and being ahead of the curve of what's coming for their timing of the year that's most critical.
No, you're absolutely right. Hey, another thing, and this should be obvious nowadays, but it may not. I think everyone should be using, multi-factor authentication, 2-factor authentication for their online shopping accounts.
Yep.
And it just helps ensure that if you happen to be, using public Wi-Fi or some way exposing, yourself, you're mitigating some of the threats by having a stronger authentication approach. And so, take advantage of those 2-factor authentication opportunities and these online shopping sites.
You can't say it enough, right? We continuously are talking about the need for multi-factor authentication, but you're absolutely right to ensure that, the vendors that you're typically doing business with, they very likely have multi-factor authentication there as an option to turn on. Go ahead, make sure you go look for that and turn it on. The other thing, Stan, I was just thinking, being that I'm traveling right now and you look for these like, geez, I got to get access right in the moment, right? Avoiding those public Wi-Fi connection points. There's always a major risk associated with those too. The other thing is, again, just good hygiene. When you're going through, those different store websites, making your purchases, make sure that it is, again, secured transactions, right? It's HTTPS. You see the little lock on the top, usually left, right, prefixed in front of the URL. And then the other kind of, best practice too is your purchasing should actually be done through a credit card and not being using your debit card, for anything in that regard.
Hey, we've talked about the consumer side. You want to pivot over to the business side?
Yeah, I think the Adobe example is one, right? That is definitely more on the business side because it's their businesses that they are leveraging the solutions to create their e-commerce platforms for the consumer to go ahead and transact with. The other thing too is, it's back to the consumer as well, but again, more so on the business risk is payment fraud, right? And there's so many different angles on what can happen there. But again, just submitting what looks like, a valid type of form of payment, and having the right kind of control mechanisms in place to verify it's not fraudulent that's coming across.
Well, I mean, again, stolen payment information that's used for purchases, and then you end up having to handle disputed transactions with the ultimate customer, right? And so, yes, you did buy it. No, I really didn't. Somebody stole my credit card information. One of the ones that I mentioned from the consumer side, being aware of whether or not the site is authentic, but as an e-commerce business, you also need to be monitoring for any fake websites that, could be offering, deep discounts or other offers to lure the unsuspecting consumer to those sites. And again, when the customer enters their credit card information, that's on that fake website, it can be stolen by those cyber criminals. So that's something that actively monitoring for potential fakes to help shut those down quickly.
Yeah, totally. Anything else you can think of, Stan, that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, there are some classic ones, right, that still are applicable to businesses. I mean, if you think about this as being a big time year for these e-commerce sites to actually sell a lot, right? And so the ransomware attacks can be effective in the sense that they know the target is motivated to resolve things quickly, to not miss out on these 4 or 5 days of key sales. And so there's that. And then I don't hear about it as much, but distributed denial of service attacks against these sites as another way of extorting potentially an e-commerce organization who's dependent on these sales in this time of year to make changes or to extract money out of them. You can bring down these sites during these key days and disrupt their operations and prevent them from processing orders. So that could be, again, they need to be aware of that potential threat.
That is a good point too on the ransomware that you brought up. I wasn't actually thinking of that, but this is like a prime time because they're very much more likely to, unfortunately, to go ahead and pay the ransom. The other thing, almost going back into the way phishing emails now are crafted, it's how AI is being used to actually make the language that much more clearer and human-like. Because in the past, right, we could take a look at some emails and just look at the context of the email and be like, this isn't correct. The verbiage is off. But now with the utilization of AI to actually craft these messages, it is much more realistic. And so again, that risk becomes that much more evident for these consumers really that may be receiving those emails and think that they're real.
The social engineering and phishing, it just gets more and more difficult. You just have to be very aware of the threat. And to your point, even when you're aware, you can be fooled. You can. Well, Stan, I think we covered the majority of the bases on both the business and consumer front. What I will ask you is this: just don't go spending too much this year again, Stan, please. Sounds like my wife.
Mine too. Well, until next time, my friend, we'll catch you again on the other side.
Happy shopping.
Hello, producer Ben here, and after 15 minutes of Rob and Stan dedicating themselves to warning you of the seasonal cyber risks out there, I'd like to point you to another episode where you get a behind-the-curtain view of the world of cyber criminals. It's episode 40 of Reimagining Cyber. It features Ravi Laib from Keeler, an award-winning cyber threat intelligence technology company, and it's called Inside Cybercrime.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, you were a cyber criminal and you had a revenue model that relied on you gaining access to, let's say, CEOs' emails in companies. You had to know to do a lot of stuff. You had to find ways to not appear suspicious. In today's cybercrime economy, you don't really need to do anything rather than just buy services from people. You go into an automated shop. And that's it. You really outsourced everything that you needed to do before.
That was Ravi Laib from episode 40 of Reimagining Cyber, called Inside Cybercrime. Thanks for listening. If you're thinking of getting your loved one a present on Black Friday, well, why not really treat them and share an episode of the Reimagining Cyber podcast? It is the gift that keeps on giving, and it's free. Goodbye.